He was also a helicopter unit pilot, chief of maintenance as well there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was SWAT team leader. Before that, he was a Marine in Vietnam, decorated. And then after that, he went into Army intelligence, became a colonel, lieutenant colonel. And he joins us now a little bit into the next hour. And then our next guest is coming on to break down his view, his take. He hadn't been on probably 6-8 months. Colonel Roberts, always good to have you on, Craig. Right now, I mean, you heard me give that preface. From all the police and military sources you have, what is going on right now? Should we be concerned?
Oh, I'd absolutely be concerned right now. You know, I'm seeing more people waking up and just they're getting scared and they're getting angry. They know something's up. They know something's not right. They know they got a renegade government. They got a rogue, out of control mess of federal agencies out there. You know, they read reports. Of course, the internet helps a lot on getting a lot of information out, even though some of it may be disinformation. You have to know how to weed through that and filter it. You know, we have to do that, you know, in the intel shop. We always had to weed through and filter everything to figure out what was true and what wasn't. And we're seeing stuff, you know, just bits and pieces. But you and I have talked about this before. The way you work on intelligence is you take all these bits and pieces and you put them on the wall and you try to form a picture. Are they connected together? Do they mean anything? And what goes with what bit of information? And when we do that with all the stuff going on now, ever since 9/11, it's been building all the time toward something coming to a head in this country. And now with this guy in the White House that won't even give his records, his school records, his true birth certificate. You know, I mean, we've gone through all of this stuff before. He won't do any of that. And you've got all these things about the Department of Homeland Security buying all this 40 caliber ammunition, hollow point. That is not used by the military. The military doesn't even use 40 calibers. And so why do they need, you know, hundreds of thousands or millions of rounds of ammunition? Then we find out that now they're buying 223, which fits the M16 series, the AR-15 series. And they're, you know, what was it, 1.2, 1.4 million rounds of that? That's not for target practice. And we're seeing all of this information coming out about bringing certain troops back home into the country and training them for anti-terrorist training on domestic soil. Well, who, you know, if you're going to have a brigade of troops, who are they going to go up against? You know, we're not talking about a group of 12 Hamas terrorists down the street. We're talking about a lot of people. You've got all these things happening at once. Plus, there's reports of Chinese equipment being stockpiled in Mexico and in Freeport in the Bahamas, which just happens to be the largest transshipment port in the world, is run by Hutchison Whampoa and Costco.
Oh, they admit that the Chinese have taken over that island. They're building all those ports and stockpiling weapons, and now they can't even release the new Red Dawn. They had to re-edit it to where the Chinese government wasn't criticized. I mean, that's how pathetic our country's gotten.
Oh, I know, and we've got all these different types of situations going on with computer viruses now that China could attack our systems. Look what we did to the Iranian systems with that virus that we sent over to their nuclear power plant computers. They could do the same thing here with our computers. In fact, Monday, I think it was, 83,000 computers were supposed to shut down because of a worm that was in them that they'd gotten off the internet that was redirecting the searches to other websites. It just goes on and on and on. You know, I teach a lot of military, police, and civilian firearms courses, and one of them is the concealed carry class for our state. And I have had more people coming to these classes that we're talking old people, we're talking just a lot of ladies are coming in now. They're scared. They want to know how to use a gun. They've never had a gun before in their life, and they're 70 years old or maybe 75 years old, and they want a gun in their house, and they don't want, you know, a double-barrel shotgun. They want a pistol that you know, has 13 rounds in the magazine and three spare magazines and a stockpile of ammo. And I say, you know, this gal isn't buying this stuff to, you know, guard her cookies. They're actually out all over the place, afraid of what's going on in this country.
Exactly. Well, they've had questionnaires. This has even been in USA Today. With 1 million guns was the previous record in 1 month. Then it was 2 million, 3 million. They had 1 month this year where 5 million guns through the NICS got sold. That's 5 times the previous record. And when they questionnaire ask them, they say collapse and we don't trust the government. So the so-called government, have you seen the clips, Colonel, where they now all over the news are announcing that America has been captured by foreign banks and that we're slaves and that it's a good thing?
No, I haven't seen that.
I'm not kidding. I can play a clip right now for you. What do you make of them saying that?
Well, I don't doubt it a bit. I mean, our Federal Reserve System has been joined at the hip with the Bank of England and the Rothschilds since the very beginning of 1923. So, I had a meeting with a wills and trust lawyer a couple of weeks ago, and we got to talking about this, and I said when we were in my stockbroker's office, and I said, would you get on a computer and buy me 100 shares of Federal Reserve Incorporated stock? He said, what? I said, would you do that? And he says, no, you can't buy stock in that. Then I said, how come you can have a corporation and you can only have 11 stockholders? And so he's been doing his research. He'll get back to me.
And that's how you plant seeds. Stay there. I want to get into analyzing this globalist takeover, what they're planning to do with this collapsing the cities, the counties, what you see coming. Everybody in their gut can feel it, so they're digging in. Government's digging in. What's coming? Yeah, they're in, of all places, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I saw 2 years ago where one of the city council people said, we got to inspect gardens. People might be growing marijuana in them. And then it was Tulsa again, where they went and cut a woman's garden down in her backyard, an old woman, and charged her for it. Hey, what's going on in Tulsa there, Colonel Craig Roberts? You were a police officer there for a long time.
Well, I think code enforcement's gotten out of control. Of course, there's always two sides to every story. In one of those cases, these people let their lawn grow so high that it was a fire hazard, and it scared everybody around them. And, if it had been me, I'd have gone over there and mowed it for her. I mean, it wouldn't have bothered me a bit. When you live in cities, the closer you live together, the less you know each other. You move out in the country, you meet all your neighbors in no time because they come by. But in the city, people, they want to withdraw inside their house, not that sort of thing. And so they don't, unless you know your neighbors, you don't trust them, they don't trust you, and pretty soon you've got them complaining if you leave your trash cans out, if your dog gets out, if your cat goes over to their yard.
Exactly. We're losing human society watching television all day. So you heard my question as we went to break. Clearly, we're in a designed implosion, so the feds can come in as the savior. I have a clip we're going to play in the next segment of the bankers announcing that we are their slaves. They're saying it in all these different publications. The TSA is groping people everywhere. They're running highway checkpoints. Are we being eased into martial law? And how do the globalists plan on being able to have this takeover take place?
There's about 3 or 4 different ways to look at this, and I've kind of war-gamed it around. This country right now is on the verge of basically a revolution. It could just about anything could kick it off. It could be an instigated set of race riots. It could be food shortages. It could be a breakdown in transportation so that nothing gets to the cities from the country. It could be a lockdown on travel due to some terrorist activity. It could be Islamic terrorism that's set off to go with Iran. It could be any type of societal breakdown, especially in the larger cities, to where they have to do something about it. They declare martial law, whatever. And, we talked about General McCaffrey's statement to the CASQ course at Fort Leavenworth years ago when he said that with the build-down of our armed forces, this was back during the Clinton administration when they were closing bases under the BRAC plan and all that, and they're reducing the number of planes in our fighter squadrons, reducing the number of ships, reducing the number of divisions, and so on and so forth. He said with the build-down of our armed forces being what it is, if we get committed in 2 or more fronts overseas, we will be forced to call upon foreign assets to police our streets, which he means UN troops. And we've been training, you mentioned this earlier, we have trained foreign troops in the past with Cooperative Nugget down at Fort Polk, Louisiana, on a combat town that looks like downtown America. It doesn't look like, some third world country. It has a church, it has a school, it has buildings.
But they now admit they plan to use foreign troops here. I mean, that's in mainstream news now.
Yeah. And now we've got all these Russians training up at Fort Carson, Colorado. Of course, we get different numbers, anything from 12 to 1,200 or whatever. And it's interesting that Fort Carson at Colorado Springs isn't that far from Denver, and Denver is where you have Denver International Airport. I call it Devil International. and it's out in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing wrong with Stapleton. But they came in and they built that place, and they built an underground city under it that you can't get into. You can't take a tour of it, and they've got an extra runway out there that's buried under sand that you can clear with a. This is according to the Denver Police Department, by the way, that told me this. They were out there when they were building this thing. If they need another runway, they just run a snowblower over it. And they've got one that's a mile long or however long it is, big long one. They can land anything up there because you got to have up at that altitude. You got to have a longer runway because the air's thinner.
Sure. By the way, have you been to Denver lately? I was there a couple years ago. And they had weird pyramids and Anubis and obelisk. I mean, giant ones out on the side of the runway now. And it's gotten even weirder out there.
Well, anybody can go on the internet and look up Denver International murals and see those murals up there showing what looks to be a Russian stormtrooper with an AK-47 wearing a big greatcoat.
And a bunch of dead kids.
A bunch of dead kids and coffins. And the thing about Columbine is on there before it happened. And so, why?
No, but I'm saying, so last time I was there, I don't know if it's still there, you're flying in, there's giant gold obelisk and, 200-foot tall Egyptian gods and stuff out on the side of the runway. It's weird.
I didn't see that when I was there because I was at the terminal, but just the stuff in the terminal. And if you start taking pictures of that stuff now, the security guards come and get you. I mean, it's incredible.
We're going to go to break. A long segment coming up. I want to get into a host of issues with you, but I want to talk about ways to try to turn this around. But I agree with you. The globalists know it's their takeover. They're geared up for a counter-revolution. But it just, I've war-gamed it from every angle. It just runs from bad to worse unless you're a globalist sitting overseas watching it all happen. This is the point I'm trying to get at, Dr. Roberts. Call you Dr. Roberts because you are kind of a doctor of life. But speaking of Dr. Roberts, even Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, that's what I was about to say, is coming out. And, he was the former head of the Treasury for policy, a high-level guy, all the big national think tanks. And he's had to come around to our thinking that, yes, it's a global, private, corporate, fascist government. They're totally evil. They're going to start World War III, and they do plan the mass arrest, re-education, all of it. I want to play this clip and then get your take on it. Here is the clip, one of the clips. There are literally hundreds of news articles, and I've shown them to you. Time Magazine, Newsweek, Financial Times of London, The Economist, all saying, oh, technocrats, unelected, run Europe, and they're going to run us, and they're going to turn the economy off, but it's really cool to be poor. And you go to Whole Foods, half the magazines are austerity, how much fun it is, austerity today, being poor is cool, having nothing's cool. But again, you're going to pay a lot more for less. It's a total organized post-industrial system. The Russians could have supplied sausages and stuff. They wanted you to stand in line, folks. It's about total control. And then now they come out and just say, yes, we've been conquered by foreign banks. We're their slaves. Here is a clip. And by the way, it's 4 minutes long. All the guests agree and say it's good to be their slaves except one. So we were crazy to say this. Colonel Roberts was crazy to write books 15 years ago about it and have a radio